Hi everyone, CJ here. Welcome to the 6th episode of the Water Margin Summarised Series. In the previous episode, we covered the adventures of Jiang before he joined Mount Liang and his discovery of their greater destiny. In this episode, the outlaws will go to war as they grow their force into a band formidable enough to take on the state. For historical and cultural context, I will also talk about superstition in Song Dynasty China. Before I start, let me remind you that we've got these cool shirts and merch for the series. These characters say, "Within the four seas, all men are brothers," a commonly used slogan in the novel. You can support what we are doing by getting these goods from the link below. Alternatively, you can support us on Patreon or make one-off donation using the Super Thanks button or Coffee. Since Jiang was so famous and influential, and due to the fact that he had stacked the members of Mount Liang with the people he introduced to the organization, he was promoted to be the Joint Chief of the Outlaws, ranking only slightly below Cao Ge. Meanwhile, the other named outlaws served as captains for their respective divisions: infantry, cavalry, scouting, logistics, and so on. Day by day, more and more people were attracted to join the outlaws due to their fame. And they had grown so large, they had to start thinking about securing new source of supplies. But they can't just rob anyone, since they are supposed to be honorable bandits after all. They needed a pretext to raid for supplies. As written in the Sun Tzu's Art of War, the first of the 5 fundamental factors of war was moral justification. Nurhaci, the patriarch of the Manchu people, who laid the foundation of the Qin Dynasty to conquer China, claimed to have learned everything about warfare from Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Water Margin stories. Many people are quite familiar with the former, so let's take the opportunity to learn some strategic lessons from the latter. But before we do that, where the heck is the Taoist priest Gongsun anyway? It's been a really long time since he went to visit his mother, and he hasn't returned yet. So they sent Daizong, the magic traveler, to find him. Somehow, Daizong just couldn't seem to find him. But on his journey, he met quite a few characters who wanted to join the famous Liangshan bandits. He also met Yang Xiong and Si Xiu, who would have their own few chapters of side story, which culminates into them killing Yang Xiong's adulterous wife and them needing to seek refuge at Mount Liang. Si Qian, who witnessed the murder, tagged along as traveling companion because he wanted to join too. Along the way, however, Si Qian was arrested at the Zhu family manor for stealing and eating their chicken. So when they reached Mount Liang, Jiang found his pretext to raid the Zhu family. It is also a preemptive self-defense, since the Zhu family had boasted about their plan to arrest the Mount Liang bandits and send them to the authorities. As they fought, the Zhu family turned out to be quite formidable, and with the addition of Hu and Li family as their allies, Jiang couldn't even win even though he had the heavenly books guiding him. So he had to come up with some schemes to break them apart. First of all, Jiang gave the Li family some gifts to have them stop helping the Zhu family. Since the master of Li family, Liang, was a friend of Yang Xiong and Si Xiu, and he was recently injured by a member of the Zhu family, Jiang received silent assurances that the Li family won't make any moves. As for the Hu family, Jiang captured Hu Sanyang, their warrior woman, in battle. It was a tough fight. In the process of capturing her, it was Wang Ying and a few others who got captured instead. Eventually, it was Ling Cong who managed to capture her. She proved to be an important bargaining chip. The Hu family will stop supporting Zhu family for her safe return. For the final piece of his stratagem, Jiang planted a few sleeper agents in Zhu family manor. They had recently acquired some new recruits who are friends of the members of the Zhu family. So, upon launching their next frontal assault, the sleeper agents rose up, killed everyone left back in the manor, and locked the Zhu family warriors out. Confused and outmaneuvered, they were eventually wiped out by the Liangshan bandits. They have won gloriously, but it won't be Water Margin if there isn't Li Kui making a mess of everything. In his battle frenzy, he massacred members of the Hu family who had an agreement with them. So, to resolve this matter, they arranged a marriage between Hu Sanyang and one of their members, Wang Ying. Song Jiang had promised to find him a wife a while ago, so he practically killed two birds with one stone with this move. Hu Sanyang agreed to the marriage due to Song Jiang's sincerity. Well, admittedly, romance is not the strong suit of Si Naian and Luo Guanzong, the authors of Water Margin. They are like today's shonen action manga authors. If you want romance back then, there was actually a separate genre called the Scholar and Beauty. The name comes from the fact that the male main characters are almost always soy boy scholars, and the heroines are pretty women. As for the Li family, they were suspected to have collaborated with the outlaws, so they were arrested by the government. Luckily, the Liang bandits came in the nick of time and killed the governor. To make sure that Li Ying joined Mount Liang, their manor was burnt down and their family members were transported to the mountain for safety. It is kind of funny how the threats posed by these other houses are so conveniently neutralized, isn't it? All the while, Song Jiang still appeared as the good guy. The biggest lesson Nur Hatsu could have learned from Water Margin was the importance of talented personnel and the application of their expertise. Additionally, it also provides a lot of lessons on how to coerce people to join your team. This novel pretty much teaches you the dark arts of warfare. While the outlaws were celebrating, more people came to join them. And this time, it is Song Jiang's old friend, Lei Heng, who came knocking. He got into trouble for killing a woman who hurt his mother. Meanwhile, his friend Zhu Tong was arrested and exiled for letting him escape. Well, Song Jiang had always wanted to be reunited with his old friends, so he sent some people to recruit him. However, Zhu Tong was content with his new life, and he was trusted by the new governor to look after his son. So Li Kui grabbed the kid and killed the innocent boy. It was quite a monstrous act. Lots of adaptations censored this scene. This is why a lot of people hated Li Kui. But to be fair, it was done under Song Jiang's direct order. This is written in the original version. Zhu Tong could have killed the brute had Cai Jing not calmed the situation down. Now, Zhu Tong had no choice but to join the outlaws. But he will remember this grudge against Li Kui, and he wouldn't want to see him anywhere in the headquarters. So in the meantime, Li Kui had to stay at Cai Jing's place for a bit. Of course, Li Kui, being Li Kui, stirred up trouble again. When Cai Jing got into an argument with a ruffian who killed his uncle, Li Kui just killed the man. But that man happened to be the brother-in-law of Gao Lian, the governor of Gao Tang, and he was also Grand Marshal Gao Qiu's brother. Cai Jing then told Li Kui to escape. He was sure that the official could do him no harm since he had the iron certificate. He just had to find it somewhere. He left it in his other home. The iron certificate is an imperial guarantee that the holder could not be persecuted by law, except for the crime of sedition. His family was given this because he came from the royal lineage of the previous dynasty, later Zhou. According to the novel, Zhao Kuang-ying, the first emperor of Song dynasty, felt guilty about usurping the throne, so he gave this to their family. Historically, death exemption privileges exist, but they come in various shapes and forms throughout different dynasties. The medal shape, popularized in various media, is just one of them. However, there was no record that the royal lineage of the later Zhou was given this privilege. This plot point may be inspired by a similar folktale. It claims that Zhao Kuang-ying, the first emperor of Song, erected a secret stele, ordering his descendants to give the later Zhou lineage preferential treatment. They cannot be executed for any crimes besides treason. So this plot point sounded plausible, but it is not historically backed. Anyway, the iron certificate did not arrive in time, and the corrupt official Gao Lian arrested Cai Jing. In response, the Liang bandits rode out to rescue him. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because Gao Lian turned out to be a formidable sorcerer, and with his magic, he easily defeated Song Jiang and the rest. At this point, magic had entered the narrative and fantasy is added to the novel's genre. This story is looking a lot more like an RPG game now. To counter this, they have to find the Taoist Gongsun immediately. Daizong was ordered to go look for him again. and Li Kui tagged along because he was bored. These few chapters are just side stories where we see Li Kui create more mess and gets punished for it. At last, when they found Gongsun Sheng, the Taoist priest was reluctant to leave because he wanted to take care of his elderly mother and he wanted to continue his studies with his master. So, to sever his connection, Li Kui tried to assassinate the Taoist master at night. But when he cut the master down, instead of blood, white solution bled out of him. Wow, this virgin must be really backed up. Yep, this novel got quite a few racy jokes here and there. But on the next day, Li Kui was surprised to discover that the master came back to life. Now, he permitted Gongsun Sheng to assist Song Jiang, but punished Li Kui with magic. Li Kui is just like a big murderous baby who got a slap on his wrist each time he committed atrocity. On their way back, they picked up another recruit, Tang Long. Now, with the powered-up Gongsun Sheng on their side, Gao Lian is toast. With a ray of golden light, he dispelled the corrupt official's foul magic, and then the Liang bandits proceeded to thoroughly trash their enemy. It is interesting that they usually just use their magic to dispel their enemy's magic and win by real fighting, except for a filler chapter which feels out of place, but I will discuss that later when I get there. By winning the battle with real combat, it just feels manlier and gives the other characters something to do. However, there is perhaps another reason why they don't want to use magic as crutch. It might be the stigma of superstition in Song Dynasty. The emperors of Song Dynasty were notoriously superstitious. Huizong, the emperor featured in the novel, was one of the worst. He was led to believe that he was the reincarnation of a Taoist god by a charlatan, and he fervently promoted Taoism. His son and successor, Qin was even worse. He believed in a Taoist priest who claims that his small contingent of divine soldiers, protected by his invincibility spell, could defend the empire from the Jurchen invasion. Obviously, that didn't work out for them, and it led to the Jiang incident, a series of atrocities that devastated the Song court and led to the establishment of the Southern Song dynasty. Interestingly, their ancestor, Emperor Zhenzong, was also very superstitious. He periodically claimed that he received magical books from heaven, just like Song Jiang did. The fact that Song Jiang's book didn't prove to be that useful throughout the novel might be a jab at that. But who really knows what the writer was thinking? Angered by the death of his brother, Gao Qiu pulled out the big guns and sent out the formidable general Zhuo and his trusted lieutenants. Using his linked cavalry formation, he easily defeated Song Jiang, and the latter was forced to bunker down in his mountain fortress. When Zhuo tried to get the cannoneer Ling Zhen to knock down their defenses, the outlaws captured and recruited him instead. Here is another lesson in warfare. Be adaptable. The Liang bandits can adopt not just magic, but also technology into their repertoire. To win this fight, they need the help of Xu Ning, who they threw to their camp by stealing his precious armor. He then taught them how to craft and use the hooked spear technique. And using that new technology, they nullified Huyan's linked cavalry formation and defeated him. Now, here is another lesson in war psychology. Defeated enemies will usually try to prey on smaller targets to regain their confidence and strength. People often use their poor predicament to justify attacking others. But in this case, there is at least some justification. Zhuo attacked the nearby bandit groups even though it was not part of his assignment. He figured that he would be in better position if he returned with some small achievements instead of going back empty-handed. But he really kicked the hornet's nest when he attracted the attention of the various local bandit groups, including the flowery monk Lu Zishen's band. But still, Zhuo was a tough warrior, so they had to call upon the support of Mount Liang to finally defeat him. Naturally, Zhuo and his lieutenants were recruited by Song Jiang after their defeat. With this glorious victory against the government expedition force, the Liang bandits' fame shot up to astronomical heights. Other bandit groups started to merge with them, and more high-profile outlaws that had appeared from earlier chapters started to join too. Zhu requested Song Jiang to save their friend Jing, the 9th true dragon who was imprisoned by the local governor. So They came up with a scheme to hijack the imperial ceremonial bell and ordered the governor to come up to the mountain to offer his prayers. They killed the corrupt governor and returned the bell to the Grand Marshal Su Yuanjing. They treated him well because he is a nice guy. This man is virtually the only righteous official in court and will become their political ally one day. For some strange reason, Sijing became the jobber of the group. He kept losing battles to show how powerful the enemy is. Their fame also attracted challengers. A band of bandits led by the Taoist sorcerer Fan Rui tried to claim Mount Liang, but his magic was no match for Gongsun Sheng and his 8 trigram formation, which was used by Zhuge Liang. You often hear about this 8 trigram formation being described as the ultimate formation in many Chinese literatures, but it is just a highly fantasized version of the real one. With Fan Rui defeated, his group also joined Mount Liang. Fan Rui himself became part of the magic division. Song Jiang's band is so famous now, he even got a fan from distant lands coming to join him and presented him with a legendary steed, Duan Jingzhu. With his blonde hair and red beard, implied that he was of foreign descent. He is practically the token foreigner in the story. He also told Song Jiang that he was robbed of his horse when he was at Chengkou City. They didn't relent, even though he told them that the horse was a present for Song Jiang. Well, that sounds like they've got no respect for the Liangshan bandits. After sending Taizong to investigate the city, they discovered that the people were actually boasting that they are going to capture Cao Gai and the Mount Liang bandits. Ooh, the gall of these people. So, what is Song Jiang going to do about this? On the next episode, the 108 outlaws will be completely gathered and their purpose unveiled. For cultural and historical context, I will also cover prophecies and predestination in Chinese culture. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it. Also, remember that we've got great t-shirts and merch you can get to support the channel. Before I go, I would also like to thank our patrons at Patreon and other contributors for making this series possible. Until next time, stay cool, my bros!